Welcome. Today we have women from the Canoe family joining us today. My name is Juliet McGraw. I'm the Community and Cultural Education Director for the Friends of the Ridgefield National Wildlife Refuge. Thank you for joining us today. It is Mother's Day, and we're happy to be bringing you contemporary matriarchy on Canoe Journey. And we're going to talk a little bit today about what it means to grow up with such a close connection to the Columbia River, how that relates to the Plankhouse, and just generally how the return of Canoe Journey has enriched Indigenous people's lives in the Northwest, but also more personal, just what it means to be a woman that's a leader in the community today. And so we'll start a little bit with introductions. We're going to begin with Mildred Robinson, and you can go ahead.
Happy Mother's Day. My name is Mildred Robinson. I'm the wife of Sam Robinson, who is currently vice chairman of the Chinook Indian Nation. One thing I just want you to know about me is this is just a wonderful community. The Chinook people are wonderful, and I just feel blessed to be part of this community. And the Plankhouse second is just has a life of its own. And when I'm in that Plankhouse, I just feels so good and so right. And so I feel honored to be among these women here today and young women that are going to be able to share some really good stories and some really good times. And hopefully we'll all learn from one another and have a good experience today.
Excellent. I think that brings us to Michelle Johnson.
My name is Michelle Johnson. Happy Mother's Day. I'm a descendant of the Cathlapotle and Lower Chinook people, and I also descend from our neighbors, the Tillamook to the south and the Lower Chehalis to the north. I come from the Salaki, Bob, Telzan, and Lane families, and I'm a direct descendant of Clatsop Chief Wasilta. I'm the mother of five. Me and my husband, who is the chairman of Chinook Indian Nation, live in our ancestral territory here in Willapa Bay. And we have been traveling on journey. I believe it's been, well, there hasn't been a couple journeys because of COVID, but it will be 17 years, I believe. We started in 2005. And I'm just glad to be here all with my cousins, sisters, and fellow Canoe family women.
And that brings us now to Rachel.
Lahayam Rachel Naika Neem. Name's Rachel Cushman. I am from the Clatsop and Willapa people, like Michelle, who is a cousin of mine. I'm also Tillamook and Lower Chehalis. And I'm also granddaughter of Hereditary Chief Wasilta. Really excited to be here. Happy Mother's Day, and we're just really exciting to be with all of you again.
So Mary.
My name is Mary Johnson. Michelle's my mom, so she pretty much explained all that for me. I'm excited to be here with everyone, even if it's, all virtual. It's good to see everyone's faces again.
Destiny.
Hi, I'm Destiny Reeves Robinson. My grandfather is the vice chairman, Sam Robinson. I am grateful that I have been able to grow up with the Plankhouse and be able to grow up with the tribe and be part of it.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for coming here today. I know that we've got a few generations represented, so that makes me very excited because we all know intergenerationality is important to our community as a whole. So it's really exciting to see that, especially with Michelle and Mary bookending the mother and daughter, and then you've got Mildred and Destiny with grandmother and granddaughter. So I'm just really excited that we get some of that crossover today. Let's kind of just start a little bit easy because I'll be selfish. This is a personal question that I'm curious about, not growing up in Canoe culture. What are some of your areas, your earliest memories about maybe being on the river? And y'all can jump in and just, we'll figure out how to edit it later if you talk over one another. But if someone has something that they want to jump in with that. Oh, Michelle, let's do it.
I was born and grew up in outside of Longview, Washington, in an interesting rural small community called Bunker Hill. And our house overlooked the Columbia River. I believe it's now a larger neighborhood, but I think from my very first memories ever were looking down at the river. One of my fondest memories is watching the Portland Rose Festival ships go by. And we also would, as kids, even though we weren't supposed to, we would go down the side of the hill, cross the little creek, across the highway, and just go do as we pleased in the river, swimming, playing. We also sometimes would bring home a salmon, me and my brother and sisters.
So my first memories of the river are, I grew up in Portland, but my mom's family all lived in the lower river area, in Astoria and Ilwaco and stuff like that. So we go and visit quite a bit, but where I really spent a lot of my time was mid-river. My dad's family is all from Cascade Locks area, Stevenson. And so, I just remember my whole life, it was driving from the Dalles all the way to the mouth of the river and, adventuring along the way and going to all the different swimming holes and the waterfalls and just really spending time at all of the green spaces and beaches and playing with both sides of my family. So the river is really important, and my family living in Portland, being in the middle, I got to be right in the middle of my family area. So that's my memory and how connected to it I was.
I suppose my earliest memory was when we lived in Eastern Washington. We used to spend a lot of time at the river in the summer and play. And I had a game where I wanted to be a mermaid. So I'd go down and get all these beautiful rocks. I don't know if they were actually, as a kid, they were beautiful. Go get some beautiful rocks and make a game out of it.
Do you remember Mary going over the Biggs Bridge, and every time I'd say, "Oh, you just missed the mermaid."
Yes.
And you would get so mad at me.
Mine was on the canoe. I don't really have many memories in the river. It was like my first or second time actually paddling when I was little, and I had dropped my paddle in the water, and Ray Gardner, the former chairman, had just been able to grab it and pass it back forward. Wow. When I was able to get it back.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question. Do the paddles, are they dense enough wood that they sink down, or do they float and you've got a little bit of chance to recover them? Okay, I would hope, but
in me when I was little.
It could have just gone.
Yeah, her choopy made her a little paddle. So as she grew, the paddle was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But this is when she was pretty small, really small. But of course, mine is going to be a little down the road, not young. But when I first met Sam and he brought me up here, his father had a boat, and he had it launched at Kalama. And anytime he would always take us along the water. And I was raised more around beachy territory, but not going on a boat or anything like that. So he always took us in just up and down the river in his boat, and it was pretty slick. And then of course Bay Center, Sam always took me to Bay Center to introduce me to all family, aunts, and just seeing the Willapa Bay and just that part of just kind of learning about the difference between a sandy beachy place and then actual true bay, the bay and the river. Just they're waters, but they're very different types of waters. It's almost like the Willapa, the river actually has a life, a personality, where the ocean water, where you're surfing, it's just a sandy beach, and it's just two different, does that make sense?
It does to me. I grew up on the river in a much different way. My dad is now a river pilot, so he was a tugboat captain. So when I would come up and visit on the centers, a lot of my earliest memories of being in Washington are from the Columbia River, just the views from the water and also just the wildlife that comes up. So it's just an honor to be able to get to relearn the river from a different perspective these days. And so let's go with that. Let's tug on that string about what are some things that you could really want to share with people about the character and kind of the personality of the Columbia River, because those who have been lived in different places across the United States, I think that are affiliated with any type of river will say, oh, well, the Pecos has a personality or the Snake River has a personality. So what do you ladies think of the personality of the Columbia? Because it's old, one of the oldest rivers we have on the continent.
I'll say one thing, and that is I've been back east a bit and seen some of the rivers that growing up I always thought were grand. You know, you read about the Mississippi River. It seems so like, you know, it was nothing compared to the Columbia. The Columbia is massive and has so many changes along the way that are so profoundly beautiful, like almost shockingly beautiful. Like, you know, from down, you know, you can go to the Dalles and you're in an entirely different environment. And the river has an entirely different meaning and feeling and way of flowing. And then you get further as you go and it just changes every bit of the way. And it's amazing.
Yeah, I want to continue on that. You know, the Columbia River is, you know, very different as you go, you know, the different biomes or whatever that are there, the deserty, high desert versus the mouth where it's more of like a temperate rainforest over there, just being really wet. You know, the thing that I really love about the lower river is that it's wild and it's not as, I mean, there's obviously some man-made structural changes that have happened over time, but not like upper river or middle river where it's dammed a lot. And I love that, you know, the lower river has it's more in its original space than further upriver where there's all the dams and locks and whatnot. I think that it's a very powerful river, and you know, it's people like to go out and play, but it's also very dangerous too. You know, the winds and the undertows and everything. And so I just have profound respect for the river and the life that it gives and the life that it provides. And, you know, I really wish that the dominant community would show it a little bit more respect.
Different life way when you look at the value of the rivers and its wildness rather than maybe what it can bring to commerce, perhaps.
Yeah.
So, continue. I was going to ask a question.
Can I tell a quick story really quick?
Please do.
If it fits into this, you can use it or not. I know others do this, but when you're traveling on the river in the canoe, you find yourself often kind of slipping into this mode in your brain where you're thinking, how many of my ancestors traveled in this exact little spot? You know, this exact current looked over at that tree or that nook in the rocks, you know. But there was a moment on journey, we were camping by Chinook, and I was on ground crew. I think you were there, Mary, or you could have been on the canoe. Mildred, you were probably there. We were at camp waiting for the canoes to come in that day. And we heard them coming in, and everyone at camp was like, and there was a couple other canoe families with us at that moment. We all heard them coming in because we heard them singing, and we all canoes. It went through camp in like a minute flat, all the other tents and people who were off in the bathrooms or wherever, everyone heard and knew the canoes were in. So we were going to go down and greet them, and there was nobody there. I started texting my husband, hey, how far out are you guys? Oh, we're about an hour out. And it was like everyone there was just we just kind of looked at each other and walked back to camp like, okay. There was a knowing, but then there was still also like oh my, it was a little scary.
We all were there, right? You heard that too. We all went running down.
We distinctly heard the canoes coming in and a beautiful song.
I think the river probably carries those songs for quite a bit. So I know that Rachel and Mary are both skippers. I am not familiar with Mildred or Michelle or Destiny, I'm still learning what the positions are in a canoe. But maybe if Mary or Rachel want to talk something about what it feels like to be skippering, and maybe a little bit of an explanation of what skippering is, since not all of our audience would necessarily know that. But also, I'm kind of thinking, we're just speaking about the proximity you have to the water. Even people on recreational craft, speedboats and stuff are so high up, and tugboats are so high up. But like when you're in the canoe, you're down in the water, right?
Well, I think normally we are, well, for years, Rachel and I have spent a lot of time up at the front of the canoe. We call them lead pullers. And so we've spent a lot of time in that seat together, I would say. I started skippering, oh gosh, I can't remember how old I was now. I remember where it was. We're in Suquamish, and my dad took me out. And that's kind of when I started learning. I was really young. I wish I remembered how old I was.
14, yeah. About 14.
14? I want to say 13, 14, probably 14. Yeah, sounds about right.
We won't ask you to confess how old you are now, but it's been skippering for a while for you.
Yeah.
Did you feel pulled to become a skipper, or was it one of those voluntold things, or just a natural evolution of how you felt on the water and in the canoe, Mary?
I will say I still have a lot to learn. I will always say that forever and ever. But it felt very, very natural. I feel like it just came to me really quickly. Sometimes I, of course, still ask my dad questions. He's my dad. I'm gonna ask him questions all the time. But I think it came to me really naturally.
And what about you, Rachel?
Like Mary said, we've spent a lot of years together in the lead pull position. She and I have been really good about keeping pace with one another and staying focused on each other's rhythm, and really are in sync with one another. So that's been really nice. And I think, each position that you have on the canoe is very important. Mm-hmm. I actually am a new skipper. 2019 was the first year that I had the opportunity to be a skipper. I think it's a really important position. I was very honored to be able to start learning. I have a lot to learn because I'm still really new. And I look forward to, if my health allows me, to continue learning once we're able to get back in the canoe. I had ruptured discs in my neck that are still healing, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to do the movements that needed to keep the canoe steady and safe. That's really what the skipper is about, is being the person to really keep people in together, and paddling, as well as the direction of the canoe and keeping that. And that's a lot of muscles that, you got to get back here and do. But if, my health allows, I would love to continue to do that, because it's, it's a really big responsibility, though. Like you're really guiding your community. And so I definitely take it seriously and respect it. And like I said, I'm learning.
I think we're always learning, but definitely I would think the responsibility of keeping everyone that's on your particular canoe safe and healthy, because I know that the Columbia River's mood can change frequently and the weather can switch up on you. And so being able to have that calm head and leadership is really important. Destiny, I have some questions for you. You're in a little bit of a different position than maybe some of us on the panel, and especially maybe Mildred or Michelle. You are getting to grow up a bit more in culture than some of our others. So would you mind sharing a little bit about kind of what that different perspective is? Because your life has always had the Plankhouse and canoe journey in it. So maybe share what some of your thoughts are on that, knowing that other people that preceded you didn't have that kind of same immersion.
I've always felt very special knowing the dances and being able to go into the Plankhouse and just having that connection with it. Being in the Plankhouse, it usually makes me feel like I'm more connected with my ancestors, and not necessarily just that, but being on the river and being in canoe journeys, even though I haven't been to very many, but just being there and being with my family.
It's been a pleasure to see you. I've been at the Friends for 5 years now, and when I was introduced to you, you were a young girl. You were my daughter's age now, and so it's been very interesting to see how you've grown up both physically and mentally and emotionally. And it's always fantastic when you're in the house. But I've been thinking a lot about you this month, or rather, I guess last month, because the house has turned 16, and that means you are, because as far as I know, that Destiny and the house have always known one another. So I think I'm going to pivot a little bit and maybe ask the moms and grandmothers in the group about what does that mean to you, knowing that you're raising your kids and your grandkids in culture, and maybe getting to provide some things that were not afforded to you.
Well, I know that because my extended family, my grandparents they lived in Puerto Rico and New York, and then I'm from California, so he's hoping that when I would either raise my children, or in this case my granddaughter, that she would be able to be surrounded by this. And so Sam definitely has been a leader in that, but it's like Destiny it's like from the moment she entered the Plankhouse, I mean, it was just familiar to her, even at a super young age. And then it was like, that's where she wanted to be. And knowing that being able to be raised by, being close to her grandfather, that's pretty awesome. I didn't have that privilege. So knowing that she can do this with her, and me, her grandmother, supporting it all the way. So that's been wonderful. And then I know that when it comes to canoe journey, I'm a lot of ground crew. I feel good about just having that, being there, trying to be the mom when it comes to, preparing meals, preparing dinner, trying to comfort these paddlers who have paddled like miles and miles, some rough waters, some mild waters, but basically, and they're wet and they're hungry and they're tired, and to be there for them, that's pretty cool. And when Destiny has been able to be ground crew, because she also has pulled in the canoe before, she's actually been able to have both of those experiences. That's been pretty amazing and pretty awesome that she has that ability to do that. So I'm pretty, again, she's blessed, and I know I'm blessed to be able to be there for that moment. So,
are you going oldest to youngest again?
We have all the time, so you can just, whoever jumps in, they can go next.
Well, I think Michelle was about to say something.
I'll say that there's a reason. There's a saying about journey, and that is, it's the hardest thing you will ever do, but it's the most rewarding. And it's, as a mom, grandma, that really, you couldn't get more truth out of that statement. Basically, there are some of the hardest moments. You learn and as a mom, we'll just say this, as a mom, you kind of have this layer, and it's not expected, but it's a instinctual role that a mom plays in the lives of their family. And that is that you have to be able to hold it together in those rough moments because we are the helpers, the healers, the, caretakers. So you have to be able to hold it all in, even though you're having a hard time, and still navigate everyone's issues. Your kids want this, or someone's tired, or I'm hungry, mom, or I gotta go to the bathroom. One of them probably needs a shower so bad that it's like getting pretty rough. And all these things happening at once, and you have to maintain at the same time. So it becomes an art form that you learn over the years to just navigate that. And it's hard. Not gonna make it sound pretty. It is hard, but it is also the most rewarding thing you'll ever do. Pregnant on journey? Been there. That's hard. Babies on journey, it's hard. A thing that I've always done, and I give as advice to others who, if they ever seem to, need some tips or feeling down, is, what did our ancestors go through? Imagine those moments, and we'll get through this. I'm sure I'll think of more stuff too. There's so many layers, guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you get down to your last pair of underwear and you're like, what am I gonna do?
That's when it gets real.
Yeah.
Been there. Yeah, Michelle couldn't be more right. Like, being a parent is one of the hardest things and the most rewarding things to do. I didn't say this in my introduction, but I wear a lot of different hats. I'm involved in the Canoe family. I'm also on tribal council for the Chinook Indian Nation, and a PhD student at the University of Oregon. And being the mother is the most important job that I have, to me. And I remember the first time that I ever got in a Chinookan style canoe with a Chinookan style paddle. It wasn't on journey, but a couple of years before that, my first journey was in 2010. But I was made for it. My body was made for it. I feel really proud to say that my kids will never remember a time, their first time, besides what I tell them. I actually just recently in March of this year, co-authored a chapter in Politics of the Canoe, where I tell my story about my children and their involvement in canoes and canoe culture. I, like Michelle was talking about, being pregnant on journey is hard. My eldest son was born on canoe journey, and I was pregnant and I was out there pulling, and everybody was shocked that I was out there. My goal was to give birth out on the spits of the Willapa River. That didn't happen. It was a complicated birth, but he came into this world when our family was on the floor, sharing our songs and our dances. And that is one of the most prideful things that I can say about, my experiences, knowing that that's how my son came into this world, and I tried hard and he just wasn't coming, and he just came at the right time. And I remember the first time that he got to sit in the canoe. Both of my sons, I have two sons, Kaneem and Isik, which is canoe and paddle, because you can't have one without the other. I know I can tell you the exact day that they got in the canoe for the first time. And I remember the first time that Kaneem got to go in the canoe on Journey, and how excited he was. And, he was still really little, and, he couldn't quite get the paddle in the water yet, and hold it. But he was so excited that he got to go and walk next to the gunnel and carry it down with everybody else. And like, he had his little, what are those called? Those little
water wings.
Water wings. There we go. He had his little water wings, and he was super proud, and he had his hat on and his glasses and his, he was ready to go out on the water. It was a shorter day, so it was good. But he was super proud. And then the following year, the same exact leg, opposite direction, he got a pull for the first time. And like, those are things that like he won't remember, but I remember, and that, it's just really, it's really good that we're in a time where it's possible, whereas before, generations, I was born 9 years after the Native American Religious Freedom Act was passed. But it took a while for the culture and stuff to really flourish after having to hide it underground for so long. So I'm just really proud of being able to raise my children immersed in culture and see my babies be proud to go out and sing and drum and pull, and just be really proud of who they are and where they come from.
So just a point of information for those who aren't familiar with that act, until the Freedom of Religion Act was put through, any Native American, there was a lot of different things. We could not practice our own languages. We could not practice our religion. And also habeas corpus laws did not apply to Native and Indigenous individuals. And if there were 2 or more gathered in the streets, it could be considered a riot. So literally, when those laws were enacted, for our audience, Michelle and Mary couldn't hang out in the street together. Destiny and Mildred would not be able to walk around together because that's 2+ Indians, and that would leave them open to being arrested. And if they were singing or practicing a language, that would happen also. So for those who aren't really understanding how recent that is, I'd have to double check the date, but I was either 2 or 4 years old when it became legal to practice our languages again. So for those of you who wonder why some of us don't know our native languages, it's because it was illegal. We could be thrown in jail for practicing it. So just for a little anchor point on what that means on kind of revitalization of communities as a whole. And so I want to give Mary a chance to talk about kind of motherhood and canoe journey, because you now do have Silas. Does Silas have his first paddle yet?
No, he doesn't. No. Not yet. Our first journey together, he was only a few months old, and it was a difficult time all around. But it was beautiful. I got to take him out on the water with us. His dad had him on the support boat, and when he was hungry, he would, pop in the canoe with me in the skipper seat and would nurse him. And that was a beautiful experience. Only got to experience one canoe journey together, and then COVID hit. So
Destiny, I'm starting out the question with you. Like, how's the impact of having been able to do canoe journey and then having to suspend it because of COVID?
It's been very different. Just been having it a habit and being able to do that, and then all of a sudden it's like, surprise, you can't do it anymore. And it's like, oh. So it's something you have to get used to, but hopefully we'll be getting back to it soon.
What are you missing the most about it right now? Like what you've been thinking about?
Not necessarily just about canoe journey, but just being with my canoe family, being able to see everyone.
Our calendars normally go from journey to journey, not January to January. So it kind of messes with your whole view of a year in time for us. We also kind of, the beginning of that calendar kind of is winter gathering at the Plankhouse. And, that's kind of like my kids, they don't know anything else. And so that's kind of there's this, there's that, then there's the salmon ceremony, and then journey. And it's been hard. It's been really hard on them. I will admit for adults and parents, the first cancellation was a little bit nice because there's a lot of hard work that goes in all year long for the planning. It is not a 2-week summer trip. It is a year-long process to go for that 2 weeks. And so it was kind of a little bit of a, we can grow a garden this summer, kind of a relaxation moment there. But now it's already been called off again. It's starting to hit to the core. And I'm kind of frankly worried about, and not in our tribe specifically, but all, Northwest Coast tribe youth. I'm a little worried about some of them falling through the cracks a bit over not having Journey, because Journey kind of helps you refuel for the year ahead, spiritually, emotionally, helps you take care of some stuff that you might have been holding on your shoulders all year. It keeps kids kind of in check a little too amongst themselves, because kids that go on Journey, they know the rules. Then they go home, they see a kid doing things that just aren't part of that traditional lifestyle. It's like, I see you, keeping each other in check back home. And I'm just worried that it's gonna, I don't know. Like I said, I worry there could be some kids falling through the cracks right now without that regeneration of canoe journey that they get.
Destiny, what are you thinking about that? Because it's kind of your peers that Michelle's kind of speaking to.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been able to go out and like see my canoe family and go out and see the Plankhouse and all that. So, I mean, for the past year, I've been I want to be more connected spiritually than I am right now. But as far as right now, I can't really go out and do all that. Like I said, I really hope it starts up soon so we can get back into the habit of getting back to canoe journeys and seeing family and stuff like that.
As what I've noticed, Destiny, and ever since she was little, when it comes to Ray Gardner had his canoe, and so we would go out in it. And then one thing that I think Journey does for the young adult, and this is what Michelle was, her concerns too, is that Destiny kind of grew up being in this environment and with this community, grew up to me that there was nothing she couldn't do. So here she was, she's like 2.5 years old. Her stomach is on top of, we have canoes coming in. So she's on the dock on her stomach and she's trying to pull. She's like, I can pull this canoe in. I'm going to help them bring this, this little person. And that's that's what it is. It's like, I can do this. I can do anything. And I think that, like Michelle says, it kind of like reconnects them, kind of shakes them up, and then they go back. And then, so I really think that that's really important. And I see Destiny having gone and, this has made her strong. And then now I don't even see her that much. I miss her a lot. So it's like, she'll drop by coming home from school, but I remember just seeing her stomach on there and thinking, she thinks she can do anything. She thinks that little body of hers can pull that canoe right over to the deck of this, where all these canoes are. She's going to do it because she knows she can, because that's what the community does. That's what the family does. Canoe family does, right? So it's really, Michelle's right on the money on that one.
There's been a few studies on now that Journey's been going for a couple generations have gone by now. There's been a scientific data collection on the effects, and the statistics have changed for drug and alcohol use because of Journey. For the positive, they've changed.
That's
Sorry,
good to know.
Rachel.
No, it's okay. I think it's important information to share. I would have to say that I agree with Michelle about the initial year. It was kind of a relief. I was dealing with some neurological issues. I was like, oh, I can get these neurological issues under control. And yeah, I can plant a garden, because every year my garden dies on journey because somebody forgets to come over and water it for me. But I think the thing that for us, in my family specifically, is that we've been so isolated, that my children are really starting to feel the effects of this isolation, and they really miss family, and I really miss family. And I'm just really thankful for the interaction that I do get, because, I'm on tribal council. I get to see quite a few members of the Canoe family on virtual opportunities. And so we've done some informal get-togethers. We've had some actual culture classes, and we've done some things together that way. But I really do treasure the days that, like, when Mary calls me, just like, hey, how's it going? Just want to check in. And that's those encounters really make my day, because I do feel really lonely, and I know my kids feel really lonely. We've one time this whole COVID time, we got to go and see Mary and Silas, masked and everything. But it was just so nice to be able to spend a little bit of time with family that, we really took for granted, I feel like, before this happened. And I know I'm feeling spiritually sad, and I need some uplifting, and I really can't wait until we can get back together and share some songs and dances and put some of our energies out onto the water together again.
I've definitely been having a hard time with it. It was kind of, okay at first, but I had a moment a while back. I was on my way to work, and those early mornings when you're about to get on the canoe and it's foggy, and just there's a certain smell on the bay. It's just a certain smell. And it was that exact same day when I was on my way to work, when I got out in my car to go to work and stuff. And it was just felt very lonely and not right to not be on canoe journey. And it's just very, very sad. Very sad. And aside from that, just the reality of, current pandemic. When we do get to go back, all the people who won't be there anymore, that's been hitting me a lot too. So it's just, I don't know, won't be the same.
I don't know how it could be the same, because as we know, COVID hit elders the most. That was where and why everything had to be shut down. And I want to say that I think the Indigenous Northwest community as a whole did a really good job of modeling for the Pacific Northwest how we need to be respecting our elders and keeping them safe. But I also think that our communities shut down really quickly because we wanted to protect our elders. So in some ways, at least some of my friends over in Portland, it almost feels like we're feeling it a little more keenly because we shut and cleared up and put up boundaries a little earlier than maybe some other communities. So, we were hitting the 1 year mark a couple of months before maybe dominant culture was hitting the 1 year mark. So I have a lot of sympathy for that. We're almost at the top of the hour, so I kind of want to give some space. Y'all can take a minute to think about it. If there's anything that we didn't touch on tonight, or something that I really wanted to tell this story, and then I kind of just want to lead out, and I think Mildred sort of encapsulated a lot of it when she was speaking just a few moments ago about this arc of what Canoe Journey is for community and what it means for the community right now and moving into the future. So, our series is Indigenous Research, Scholarship, and Leadership. And one of the reasons why I put this panel together is you're some of the most incredible women I've met across the ages. And it's just been a pleasure to work with y'all for over the years. And so when I thought about the theme this year and what I wanted to open up the series with, I was like, I know some incredibly powerful women leaders in this area. And part of it's from when Rachel and I got to be a part of that conversation with the Clark County Historical Museum, because they're featuring women's leadership in Clark County. It's the featured exhibit for 3 years. And then we got to talk about what the future of Indigenous women's leadership in this county is. So kind of wrapping into that other theme and what we're doing today, are there any things you want to share about just what it means to be an Indigenous woman in the world today, what it means to be a part just of motherhood and connection with Canoe Journey, and then especially for Destiny, just growing up surrounded and immersed in this in a different way. So, and we can take a couple of minutes so you can think if there's anything that you wanted to kind of like a final thought or a final sharing, and then, or any other stories. I don't have to rush anybody off, but I also don't want to take up too much of anybody's time. And then maybe at the minute in there, Rachel, if there were resources that you wanted to like, hey, check this out. So we can give it a couple of minutes, and then I won't call. We can go youngest to oldest maybe this time, and then we'll have Mildred wrap it up for us. No pressure, Mildred.
Oh, I was ready to tell a story. What are you talking about?
No, tell a story.
Well, because I thought it'd be nice if we could like just say one funny story about maybe when either on journey in the canoe. But one moment I don't pull on the canoe, right? I'm ground crew, but one day I can't remember where we were traveling to, but we had there were 11 miles that needed to be pulled for the final destination. And so I remember so all the women were in the canoe, right? All these women, didn't matter who they were, skipper, I don't know if you guys remember this. We were all these women were in the canoe, and then we were pulling along. And of course, we got this, right? I mean, we know how to be in sync. We got this, all women. And Bobby's like, there's the mall. Just picture the mall's right over there. Okay. And it was like, the mall is there. The mall is there. It was just so funny because everybody's like pulling me. He's like, that handbag you want, that coat. He was just making it so funny and so adorable. It was just crazy. We're laughing and then trying to pull at the same time. It was just so great. But he just made it so fun to be with all these women. And it was like, what? Because I'm not much of a shopper, but I'm telling you that it was moving and it was in sync and it worked. So it was funny.
Go get that handbag.
So this might not actually be a funny story, but just that made me think like some of my favorite experiences have been with all women. But I mean, that brings to a bigger thing. We live in this settler colonial world where this toxic masculinity has really arisen in Indigenous communities from boarding school legacies, times of boarding schools, and a lot of these genderedized ideas of culture. And the thing that I love about our community is that, we don't necessarily fall into those traps, that we, respect women and women leadership and our position in community and as mothers and as daughters and as sisters. And, that's one thing that I really love. And that that there's people who've said, oh, if you're on your moon or whatever, you're not supposed to be in a canoe, referring to like sundance cultures and stuff like that. It's like, that's not how it works. If we didn't get in the canoe because we were bleeding, we wouldn't get anywhere, we wouldn't be able to do
you have places to be.
And so we do have a lot of taboos. That just really wasn't one of them. We have protocols that we live by, but one of my favorite days out on the water was with, it was Mary, Cammie, Michelle, Tiffany,
Go skippering.
And we were all out there. And we were just laughing the whole time. And we were like, oh yeah, we should be out there in our traditional regalia. And if anybody knows about people, part of the time of the year, we didn't wear anything up top, and we were just joking, and it was great. It was a really great day. And then I have one other story of when there was this one year, I don't remember where we're going or what we were doing, but there's this kid in another canoe, and Mary was like, I think 16 years old. And, you know, Chinookan women are so beautiful, and Mary's just so beautiful that this kid was just paddle, paddle, wave, wave, paddle, paddle, wave, wave to her. And, you know, it's just like something we couldn't forget, you know, it was just like, so everybody's like, paddle, paddle, wave, wave, paddle, paddle, wave, wave. And yeah, so the thing that I love about Canoe Journey and our family in particular is that it's hard, but we really have fun with one another and we uplift each other. And I'm sorry, Mary. Sorry that I embarrassed you, but I love you.
I think Mary's going to have to follow up with her version of the memory of the paddle, paddle, wave, wave.
It was a little something like that. Except yeah, anyway. I'm not sure if I can even think of there's so many. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so many. I could probably pick something from like each year. I don't know.
I don't have any priority for if there's one that you want to share, or like, I love the idea of it being a funny one. But I really thought it was really evocative when you were speaking a minute ago about the smell. Do you want to talk about a day you were actually on the water rather than missing the water that kind of gives you that evocative memory? Because that really captured me when you were talking about that a few moments ago.
Honestly, it's probably every time we get in the canoe. I mean, there's not just like one day that I can recall having that, you know, that feeling. I think it's probably every time we get in the canoe. I do really love the early morning legs just because we get to have that moment. It's kind of like the calm before the start of the day. You know, it's going to get hot and you're just kind of waiting on the beach together. And yeah, it's just a good moment.
There was one morning in, I think it was 2011, that was the first leg that we left Squaxin Island, and we were heading north. And we got up super early in the morning, and it was dark when everybody was meeting and going out on the water, and we just were like in a fog the whole time. It was just so foggy, and we couldn't see where we were going. We're like, how long until we're gonna be there? Because we just like could not see any landmarks or anything. We were just in the fog the whole time. And towards the end, you know, it's light, but it's still foggy. We hear trains going by, and we're like, oh, okay, like they're really close. And you know, we still couldn't see anything. And then all of a sudden we see bumblebees like all around us, and they're like resting on the water and resting on the canoes, and you know, and then all of a sudden the fog cleared and the whole beach was filled with people. We could hear them singing, you know, once we got there, we could hear them singing, and then the whole beach was full of people, and like, and they came and welcomed us all to shore. But it was like really like just so beautiful. Like, I didn't know bumblebees can rest on water, you know, because they were all confused too about where they were going because of the fog. And it was just like a really, I feel like a very like spiritual moment for me.
I have a couple quick ones. One funny, one beautiful. We'll start with the funny one. We did a women's canoe from Bay Center to Shoalwater one year for the annual Georgetown Days, which is celebrating the recognition of Shoalwater. And we did a women's canoe. I was skippering. We were so happy. It was the first time we got to do a women's canoe during that event. We were like, yeah, we were so powered up and paddling away, and there's a spit out there, and what we didn't notice was that it was covered in sea lions. They were all resting, but it all blended in to the sand, right? So we're paddling away, laughing, doing our thing, and all of a sudden the sea lions decide to all like disembark the spit at the same time because we startled them or something. I'm not sure what it was, and they all come into the water, just like whoa, barreling in. And there's an illusion that can happen when you're on the water where things look different distances than they are, or like they're going a different direction than they might be. And it looked like they were coming for us. And it was like the whole canoe, we just screamed bloody murder. And I was like, paddle! And we were like, like screaming at the same time, looking behind to make sure they weren't really coming for us. When we got farther, we realized they weren't even going that way. They were like scared of us, but yeah. And then a really beautiful one is, I couldn't tell you where it was. It was in the San Juan Islands somewhere. I don't know which island, but a lot of times when you get up in those areas, there's a lot of great places to stop and take a break and flop out on the beach for a minute, have a little power nap or use the bathroom. We stopped at this one, Mary, you might remember this, and there were giant white starfish underneath of us as we're pulling up to this thing. We'd never seen anything like it. And it was almost like silence for a few minutes. All of us were just slowly paddling up to this beach and going, wow, looking down at they were so huge, and I've never seen anything like it again. The water was crystal blue that day. The weather was great. It was, I don't know, maybe one of the coolest things I've seen, like environmentally on Journey. It was amazing. I'm talking like, how big were those, Mary? Like,
Well, we were in one of the smaller canoes, and from where we were sitting, I think the water exemplified it a little bit, but it looked like almost bigger than the canoe, at least. Not, I mean, not the whole thing, but like width.
Yeah, they were.
It was large.
Yeah. I just want to say really quick too about the other piece that you had mentioned regarding being an Indigenous woman now. And I just want to add, like, as an older person, having grown up, been a little girl in the 70s when the idea of beauty, the standard was set at, let's say, like Farrah Fawcett. That was the standard of beauty when I was a child. There wasn't a lot of, there was none really, things for brown girls. I think I remember having, I can't remember it was a Barbie that came out, some special edition, but it was completely and utterly not well done, not culturally appropriate. I think it was supposed to be Hispanic Barbie or something. There was nothing. So, I grew up in a time where there were moments where you're ashamed of who you are because that's what society around you, that's the message you're getting, as a young girl back then. And now seeing how my daughters have been raised, it's like night and day, and it's so fulfilling to see them be able to be raised in a completely different world where they're completely comfortable in their skin. They can go to Journey and be who they are. There's so many resources available, so many there's even comic books now and everything. There's everything that wasn't there when I was a kid. And so it's kind of new to me too. And sometimes as an older person now, it's kind of like a awakening as well, because this stuff is kind of new for me. And so it's really empowering. I just wanted to bring that up. It feels good to finally, after all those years, like have a voice as an Indigenous woman.
I think going off on that, I would like to add something actually. Just being able to have a family in the Canoe family like this, mother, daughter, all spectrums. A moment we had a few years ago when I was having a really hard time dealing with something outside of Canoe Journey, involving someone that made himself more present in the community when he probably shouldn't have been making himself present in the community because he's a predator. And there was a moment in our Canoe Journey when everyone uplifted me and came together and said, this is not okay. Like people from all communities came together, skippers. And that was probably one of the moments, actually. I won't go too in depth into it because it was a very intimate moment. But I think that was probably healing for both my mom and I. Intergenerational trauma is a thing. And I think that probably healed some wounds for both of us that weren't able to heal before then. I think that's a really important thing to acknowledge, the healing that comes from being on journey and being with these community members.
I think that one of the things that I've been able to learn from y'all, being able to be proximate to your culture and your community, and I'm always so grateful for your openness and sharing it. It certainly makes it easier to take care of your house when you share those things with me, but also it just enriches my life personally, because like Michelle said, a lot of us didn't grow up with a lot of anything that was brown hair, brown eyed. And so I just have a lot of affection for the ability for us to be able to do things like this, but also being able to be in Chinook territory and see this revitalization, to see how y'all uniquely participate in Canoe Journey, especially since, I have friends in the Portland All Nations Canoe Journey. I've spoken with people in some of the other canoe families, and that's not a cultural thing from the East Coast or from Oklahoma, so it's brand new to me and my daughter. And it's just a beautiful way to be able to understand more about this environment and this river and this space that we live on. And I'm just very grateful that you all took some time to talk about it, just because this isn't something that everybody gets to know. And I think it's one of those things that with dominant culture, people get really excited when they see and they hear the news events that Canoe Journey are happening. But I don't think that outside of conversations like this, people really understand kind of that it's part of a greater revitalization movement, that it's a part of reclaiming, the hearts and health of the youth in our community, but also reconnecting to the ancestors of this place. And just, it's been wonderful to be able to learn more and see more. And I know that I just gave a presentation at an anthropology conference talking about the impacts of intergenerational trauma and how this impacts our communities, and it will continue to, and just how important things like this and being visible are to making sure that our communities remain strong. So as someone who's a double guest in this area, both from my European ancestry and my Indigenous ancestry, it's not from this part. So I'm just pleased to be able to walk this landscape and learn more about it. I know that Rachel had a few suggestions for resources that we'll incorporate into the video in some way. I'm going to mention Chinook peoples of the Lower Columbia River. We do a lot of our teaching out of the Cathlapotle Plankhouse programs on that. And there's some other resources that we can let people know about.
So some resources that are good if you're interested in learning more about the Chinook Indian Nation and our Chinook Canoe family are Chinook Resilience. There is a documentary about Chinook Indian Nation. Chinook Indian Nation has been fighting to clarify our status with the federal government. That goes a little bit into it. It's Promised Land. There's also, like I said earlier, a new text out called Politics of the Canoe, which John Danke, Tony Johnson, and I wrote a chapter, This is What Makes Us Strong. And it goes a little bit more into canoe culture and protocols and reciprocal heritage. And then some other resources. ChinookNation.org is a really great site. We're in the process of, over the last several months, creating a blog attached and relaunching our website. So check out our blog, check out our website, check out these other resources. The Chinook Canoe family isn't just comprised of members of the Chinook Indian Nation, but we have a lot of our neighbors who also participate in with our canoe family and travel with us. So thank you for having us here tonight.
I'll say really quick that we also know each other at our best and our worst as a canoe family, and it binds us sometimes thicker than blood, if that's a term. But we often miss each other when it's not journey in times like this, like you would your immediate family. we're that connected with each other. And so, yeah. So
We
I'll say
often like each other more than our immediate family.
Yeah. You can't choose your blood family, but you can choose your canoe family. And Juliet, we'd love you to come sometime.
If we could get a hold on COVID, I would love to come with y'all. It would be great. I could think of very few ways I would rather spend my time. Well, thank you all. I appreciate it. It's amazing to have you here. So thank you.